This is an okay setup, but I'd like to see the hands a little closer to the thighs, which would then straighten out that right arm. See how the right arm's bent a little bit? Makes it really hard to get any lever action going on there. So we'd want to bring the hands in a little bit closer to the thighs, which would then flatten her swing plane a little bit. Let's watch the takeaway. Folding the right elbow down, it's the right kind of an idea. Club face is still pretty shut, but notice that it is parallel to the lead arm. It's pretty high. So maybe she'll get a reroute to the inside. Now she gets up here, she's well above the swing plane, and the club needs to be laid off at this point. By laying off, I mean the club head needs to route back this way to the ball. And let's see what happens if it stays on that yellow line. Now we're coming back to the ball. No, it's not. It's coming right over the top. So that is going to be a very difficult. You're just chopping straight down on the ball. Not a lot of chance to have a precise contact. Huge divot, a lot of dust coming up there. Ball's trickling off to the right. Remember, we have to route that club back to the inside in order to be successful. And then right on through to the swing. And again, we're not getting any right foot action. So we're going to reroute our club the way she needs to be. So let's just go ahead and watch her swing in slow motion. This is slow motion. Apparently really slow motion.
Up and behind.
Oop. Let's try it again. See, right there. Just right over the top. We have here a classic setup with the exception of one thing. The arms, the hands are too far away from her thighs. I'd like to split the difference and get her a little bit more set up at an angle kind of like this, instead of where she is now, which is almost straight up and down. If you can bring her hands in just a little closer, she's going to have a little bit more action on the golf club in order to rotate it through and have a little more distance, even than she's getting now. She's very strong, so she's hitting great shots. So let's go ahead and draw the swing plane in so we can see how she does there. Now, what you can see is because the arms are up so straight, the swing plane is almost up to her shoulder level. So we're going to watch the takeaway now. And she's well below the swing plane, which is kind of natural since it's so high. And never is able to get the even the hands above the swing plane or on the swing plane. So the right elbow's still real low. That right elbow says that's where the swing plane would have been if she'd have set up correctly. So let's just draw the line down where the right elbow is and go back down to the setup position, and you'll see that if her hands were down there, she'd be in a better position. So we got to get the hands down to a more natural swing plane for her to have consistent results. Okay, so she's going to the top of the swing plane. Got that. Too much lift of the left leg. Let's keep that left leg planted. And she's coming right down the new swing plane, which is too high. Now she's dropping under it. Good lag right there. Come on, now turn the hips into the shot. See that? We can see both pockets of her shorts as she's coming through. If she had pockets. Ball's leaving the club dead square. Nice drive. Good leg action. Good finish. So the only flaw I see that makes it tough to be repeatable here is the hand position it's set up. Let's get it a little closer to your thighs. Get closer to that average angle of 144 degrees instead of 180 degrees, which is a straight line. On the face-on view through the sun, we can see a pretty good setup. I love the sun rays coming down. It's a beautiful day it was. He starts the club back very nicely, very uniform, good even pace, getting a good wrist hinge early, rotating the club. But he's not getting the left shoulder to rotate. See, that's sort of stopping. He's actually rotating the arms back more than he's turning his chest back. See how the shoulders haven't rotated at all? Our goal on the backswing is to get the shoulders parallel, the chest parallel to the trail foot. And we don't quite do this. So what happens, he gets back to here and he tries to go a little further and ends up kind of tipping over a little bit that way. The butt isn't behind him anymore. It's kind of pulled in. So we want him to keep the butt back and to get those shoulders turned parallel to the back foot. You can see he hasn't gotten anywhere near that position. Nice straight left arm. Let's see what his downswing looks like. He's moving into the downswing. not getting any real lever action there. So he ends up scooping the ball, loses his triangle formed by the arms right here, where the right arm is underneath it. He's flat-footed. He's got no dynamic action into the lead side. Turns right on through it. Right there, the left elbow is high. The tips haven't rotated enough. And then he ends up with his head out past the center line of his swing. He's got a lot of potential. He's been off the game for a little while. Looks pretty good. We just got to get him a little bit more active with the lower body. Very athletic golfer, very strong. The starting position is kind of off here. It's hard to tell exactly where the hip joint is, but I'm going to guess it's about there. And notice that her spine angle is about 21 degrees. It needs to be between 30 and 40 degrees. So we need almost to double that amount of forward tilt. That's going to get her in a position to swing the club much easier. Let's go ahead and clear that out of the way, and let's just see how she does. So the hands are going to swing in a manner that gets the club way far to the inside. Remember, when the hands are in this position right here, the club head should be in a small circle that includes the hands. A circle about that big. And you can see we're quite a ways outside that circle. Then she's going to lift up a little bit. Great position there. Good athletic move there. The elbows on or above the swing plane. Now she'll drive into the ball. Great hip action, dropping the club to the inside. Very nicely done. Right on through the shot. Just a little bit weak and a little thin. I think she's going to make a huge improvement if we can get her to set up at 30 to 35 degrees, maybe a big enough change. And that would look more along the lines of here to here. See if we can get her on that kind of a tilt. See how far forward the head would have to go? Butt would be out a little further behind her. Her legs wouldn't be flexed quite as much. One of the things we look for in the long club is a low and slow takeaway. And what we mean by that is we don't want the club to hurry up off the ground. And that's exactly what we're going to see here. We're going to see the club come up pretty abruptly. See, it hardly hovers the ground at all. It's just almost straight up. And that puts him in a bad position at the top of the swing where he's lifted up out of the swing. He's over-rotating the club, so it's pointing in the wrong direction. Now let's see if we can reroute the club. Whoops, that's the wrong symbol. Reroute the club back down under this line. That's pretty good. Doesn't quite get it far enough under. His real swing plane here is probably that line that he needs to get under, because that's where the right elbow ended up. So let's see if he can turn that club under that line. He's not going to make it. See that? Comes through, hits the ball pretty solid. A good exit line. Look at the club now. It's parallel to the top swing plane and bottom swing plane. Not bad between the two. Right on through to the finish. That was pretty good. So I think if we can get him to take the club back lower and slower, a more gradual takeoff of the club head, he's going to find himself with huge improvements in quality and quantity. At setup, it's pretty easy to tell this golfer's got her shoulders aimed way left of where her feet are aimed. You can't see the lead arm at all. In fact, you can see, if anything, you can see a little bit of it under the club. So what's going to happen is as she turns back, she's going to open up her shoulders. And notice that the right arm is going way back, and we're losing our triangle, and we're doing a lifting action here. So the club now is being lifted. So even though it does get to that point we talk about a lot where the club and the hands are about in the same spot, the hands should be way down here when that happens, not lifted up so far. So she's going to be way above her swing plane, standing almost straight up and down. Pretty good position, actually, if she was a little more bent over. Then she's going to have to dive back down. Watch the head dive down. Dive, 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 dive. And then she hits her spot. Now she's right back on her swing plane again. Great athleticism. It's just hard to count on that. Swing in and swing out. Right on through. Pulling the inside. You can see that. The lower body hasn't shifted at all. And right on through to the finish. So we're going to get her to get a little bit more bent over and to take that lead arm straight back on the takeaway. It doesn't go out away from your body. It goes straight back, stays nice and close to your body. Okay. Okay, this young man was constantly hitting a slice with his driver, so the first thing we did was squared him up to the target line using an alignment rod. You can see that in front of his toes there. And then we got his grip a little stronger. As you can see that the logo on his golf glove is fairly visible from this angle here. Didn't change much else. He had a really tough time getting off his back leg, and so he's golfing tomorrow, so we just wanted to find a way for him to hit straighter balls. He's got a great swing, great takeaway, and I think the main reason he'd been hitting those slices is because he wasn't able to get his weight forward because his head is going forward. You can see that there. So by strengthening his grip, it gives him a little more opportunity to rotate the club into the ball. See, he's all upper body. Now you can see he's rotated the club quite a bit, getting great extension there. Obviously he hasn't made it to the front side, but this is a good example of how we can cheat a little bit by just using our hands a little differently to overcome a swing flaw and still hit a fairly straight shot. At least put it within the cone of uncertainty, as we say down here during hurricane season. I would like to see a little more knee flex here. And I'd like to see the lead arm be apparent above the trail arm. You can't see the lead arm at all, even though you can see that the lead toes are out in front of the trail toes. Let's go ahead and draw in the swing plane, which is the thing we use a lot to see if persons are able to swing on their plane. Nice above the plane, the hands are right on the plane. Kind of a lifting there instead of a swinging back, not too bad. Club's a little bit shut there and she's lifting up. So you can see that her shoulders are above the parallel line that would be prescribed by her shoulders and the swing plane. And she's even straightened her hips more. Now she's almost standing straight up and down. Now she is straight up and down. Now what she's going to do is she's going to try to route the club back to the inside. Almost gets it under the white line, but then not quite there. So it's still on the white line. You can see her shoulders are kind of pulled in, swinging through the ball pretty nicely. Again, we're seeing some pockets of the back leg, that's of the back shorts, back pockets, right on through, exiting on the plane. Pretty good swing. So in order to be a little more athletic, let's get a little bit more knee flex and get the butt out a little bit further behind you and the chest down. Here we are in the morning sun again, facing the sun. We see a pretty good setup, maybe a little too much of a forward press with the hands, and the ball's probably too far forward for an iron. You can see that it's all the way up off his lead foot. That's why he's got such a big forward press. Let's watch the takeaway now. A lot of sway off the ball. See how much sway there is going off the ball. Getting a lot of width, and he still hasn't set the club. When the hands are about here, we'd like to see the club be parallel to the ground when the hands are about mid back thigh. We'll watch the takeaway. Now he's in a pretty good position there. If he can just get a good rotation, a good drive off the back leg. What's happening is he's not driving off the back leg. He's actually driving his head forward, and the back leg isn't pushing at all. So we'll probably see how the club is going under, a little scoopy action, and we're going to see the right foot, not the heel not come straight up, but pivot around behind him. See how it's going behind him? That's not a weight transfer. That's actually keeping your weight back on that back leg a little bit. We want that right heel to come straight up, to be pushed off, and again, straight up with that right heel, so that we end up with a straight line here, and that line includes our right knee, our right hip. And you can see that he's not quite got the lower body in front of the upper body. We're going to call this golfer Little Mo. His setup looks exactly like Mo Norman. Fairly straight legs, golf shaft running right up the lead forearm, good spine angle, very simple setup. Now and the club is 6 to 8 inches behind the ball. Club's right in the middle of his stance, ball's a little forward. Let's watch as he folds the right arm on the way back, faces the ball as long as he can. Look at that. Right to the top of the backswing, dead on plane. Perfect position here. Now he's going to drive into the ball. Now what we'd like to see is a little bit more lateral shift instead of such a downward shift. So we want him to move a little bit that way with the hips. Right on through. Good power. A little bit of a pull because he's coming over the top, but he can pull that all day long. Lets the club pull him to a nice high finish. Work on that. Google Mo Norman. and look at his swings on the internet. You'll see what we're talking about here. Perhaps the greatest ball striker of all time, and definitely was not conventional in his setup or his execution. We like to see a spine angle between 30 and 40 degrees. And guess what? This is dead on 35 degrees. And the back's pretty straight. I'd like to see the hands just a little bit closer to the thighs. That would give him a little better angle at setup. We want a 144 degree angle from the club shaft to the forearms. And we can see that's a pretty straight line he's got there. Let's clear this out of the way. The other thing we like to see is from this angle here, notice the left toe is out in front of the right toe. We'd like to see the left arm a little higher than the right arm to make sure he's square to the target line. Let's draw the swing plane in for this golfer. And the swing plane is defined by the shaft at setup. And that swing plane would be a little lower if his hands were closer to his thighs. So let's see if he takes the club back on the swing plane. Ready, going back. Okay, slightly above the swing plane, that's okay. Okay, good turn. We're starting to see a little air. That means he's not keeping the right knee flexed. We don't want to see any air here between the feet, knees. Excuse me, allergies. Notice, excuse me again. Notice as he drops the club into place, he's able to get it nice and parallel to the trail arm. What a great position he's in right there. Now if he can just rotate on through to the shot, but he stays flat-footed. So he did a great job with the upper part of the body. His lower part of his body let him down a little bit. He didn't get that rotation until after impact. And then again, we can see air again. We don't want to see any air between the legs. Here's another one of our natural golfers. What we're trying to get her to do is just simply fold the right arm. And she still tries to turn back too much with the shoulders. And from this position here, that takes the club way too far to the inside. We want that club to go back inside that circle a long ways. Notice it gets out of the circle right away. We want it inside that circle for a long way going back. And then as she gets to the top of the backswing and comes down, we want her facing that ball to get an impact and go into that circle and through that circle a long ways coming down. And notice she's pulled it right back into the inside. We like to see 30 to 40 inches of that club staying inside the circle on that path. And she's real abruptly pulling it in and out. Came to a good finish there, made pretty good contact. Just feel that club head going down the line for as long as you can. That's the advantage the natural golf swing has over conventional golf. Got this golfer setting up with the right hip pushed back away from the target. We want the left hip pushed towards the target more, so that there's kind of a straight line along here that includes the right hip. So we get the butt more behind you, a little bit more towards the target line. She's sort of starting out in a tilted position, made famous by stack and tilt, which hasn't held up very well, by the way. So let's watch the takeaway, see if she's able to rotate off. Now, in order to get a good turn, she's got to pull her head a long ways off the ball, and she's standing straight up at this point now. So she really doesn't rotate her butt around behind her, and she ends up with the club well behind her, but she's standing straight up and down. It's going to be really hard to get back to find the ball with any kind of lever action. Let's see if she drives her right leg in. Nope, she's just dropping the head down. She's way up here, dropping way down here. That takes a tremendous amount of timing and precision. Very hard to do. Now you see the elbows coming apart very much of a chicken wing, kind of getting ready to hit the ball with the left elbow going up into the air. She's right on through. Never quite gets the power that she's got available in her swing. Not a bad finish. Very balanced looking finish. But we need to get her to be a little bit more bent over and get her butt out behind her a little bit and a little bit to the left. This is a golfer that's trying to do a Mo Norman style swing of natural golf. In order to do that, we've got to get her hands up a little higher so it's a straight line from the lead shoulder down to the golf ball. Then she's just going to focus on folding and unfolding the right arm and let the body respond to that motion. Move it into the swing. She's folding the right arm. Everything's staying right there. She's on plane again. Very nice. Then she should drop right down through the plane. Look at that. Club's getting right back on plane. We'd like to see the club being routed a little bit more underneath the white line there. but not bad. Right on through. She's going to hit a pretty straight ball there. Now what you see is a little bit of lifting as she comes. See how she lifted? That's what's causing her to top it. You can see the lift. We need to face the ball at impact. Chest down, face the ball at impact with natural golf, I'm sorry. As a cameraman, I'm a little out of position on this one. I should be more up to where his belt line is. But we can still see what happens in the takeaway. What we're going to see is he's doing a good job of setting the hands early. Right on through. Great turn. Great width. Look at the width he's got in his golf swing. Work a little harder on getting the butt a little bit more behind you here. More back that way a little bit so that we maintain a fairly straight line here where the butt's up against that wall also. Let's move on through. Drive. Look at the drive of the hips. We'd like the head to stay back as you drive the hips. Pretty good position right there. Look at the club leg he's generating and the power he has in those arms. Right on through. Let's move into the shot. And here's where we have a little breakdown. You can see the left wrist is buckling and the right hand is under the club. Just as we wanted the club to be parallel to the ground when he reached the back thigh, we want it parallel to the ground as he's approaching his lead thigh, and that means the left hand has to be pushing the butt end of the club down and away from him. Right on through to a pretty decent finish, but again, early on we want to move into this power side, which is straight up this line here. We want to see the right knee, right hip, right shoulder, right ear to that line as early in the forward part of the swing as we can. And notice he doesn't get there till after. We'd like to get him there much earlier. The more you can get to the front, the better off you are. The golfer is probably a little too upright. The spine angle seems to be almost straight up and down if you look at the back of her spine. Let's see what happens on the takeaway if it goes back real flat. Yeah, see, it goes really flat on the way back. And look at that left foot, how it's lifting straight up off the ground, even rolling over a little bit. What that creates is a lack of power. And with a lot of lady golfers, we want as maximum power we can get. The good news is the club now is directly on the swing plane. You can see it's just straight up from the white line. Very good job there. Now, she will replant her left foot, but in the process of replanting the left foot, she kind of moves a little bit. Not too bad. Drops the club into the slot pretty good and drives right on through and gets a pretty good push off of the right side. I would work on getting the butt a little further behind me and try to keep that left leg more planted onto the ground for more leverage. I'd like to see a little more flex in both knees. Other than that, it's a good setup. What we're going to watch for is because the knees aren't flexed, the right leg isn't going to be able to support his weight as much as if he had a little flex in both knees. So what's going to happen is the left knee is going to come out, and we're going to see a big gap between the left leg and the right leg. We can see right through the daylight there. That makes it a little more difficult to get back on playing good. It's a great top of the backswing, got a nice flat left hand, but one thing we notice is that the club face is not at all parallel to the left forearm. That means there's a slight cupping or a grip issue. The forearm and the club face need to be on this line. And you can see the club face is just about straight up and down there. So we got to get it back on the same line as the shaft. We also need to get the right knee flexed more rather than the left knee. I think let's try to get a little more flex in the right knee. Now he's going to route the club back to the inside. Very nice. On plane. Can he get the club parallel to the trail arm? Is he driving into the shot? Not bad. See, it's coming in almost parallel to the trail arm. Not a bad position. Right on through. Notice he's got the ball on the face of the club, nice and square. It's hard to tell if he's in a setup position right now. That's where I'd like to see his knees at setup. See how nice and flexed he is here at the impact position? Let's start there. Then right on through to a good finish. Let's get those shoes rotating, that lower body rotating. Good finish. We have a pretty good setup here for a new golfer. A little tight maybe looking. She makes a halfway decent takeaway to about there, and then she just sort of quits turning. Notice the shoulders aren't turning at all. It's all hands moving back. So we need to get her to work on getting the hands a little higher. Notice they're not even as high as her trail shoulder. And we need to get the right elbow up a little higher. Then she's going to come down to the ball on a pretty good line, a little outside, but not bad. And then she's going to try to lift the club up off the ground. So she's lifting the ball. That's what causes that weak shot out to the right like we're doing here. We need her to swing through a little more aggressively than that, but a great finish. Nice job. We have a new golfer. Welcome to the game. We'd like to change here just a little bit. I'd like to see a little bit more knee flex so that the butt is a little bit more out behind her. Other than that, it looks pretty good. Let's watch the takeaway here. There's a lifting going on. See how the club is lifted up instead of swung back. So she's going to lift it up. You can see a lot of air between the two legs now. That's because the right knee is even straightened even more and pulled backwards, and the left knee is going out. Right on through to the top. Let's see if we can swing down through the impact zone. Not too bad. More of a hitting action than a swing. We want her to swing the club a little more freely than that.